This video contains subject matter that may be offensive and disturbing to some people. If you are the type to require a warning throughout a video or show, let this message serve as your warning. This channel discusses the harsh reality of true crime. If this warning is not sufficient for you, consider a different genre and unsubscribe from my channel immediately. What's going on? Free! Yeah, the Greybot 9000. That's right. The Greybot 9000. Yep, so I've got the yeah, there's after the show I kept reading about it. Sarita noticed the same thing that I did on the map. You remember the map we were looking at last night? Well, there's 2 beds in the master bedroom, which is kind of weird, right? Although I do know that there's people that sleep in separate beds because the other person moves around too much. So, but we also know that they were having problems. But if they were just getting a divorce, would they really have, had 2 beds? I don't know. It just seems like that was probably just something they did. I don't know. Anyways, what's going on? Yeah, I stayed up quite a bit after the show, kind of looking over some of the next articles. And for those of you who missed last night's, are you guys ready to go now? Or I'm going to start off right. I'm only going to do this for about maybe 2 hours, and then I might come back on for part 3 at like 9:30 or something. Maybe. See how this one goes. How many people are here? 50? 54, Jesus. Lame. Thank you.
Chewbacca?
Ryan Joe.
Oh, I'll be Chewbacca if you want me to.
Yeah, alright. Hey, and I found online, you just type in Malvina Krutz. It's hard to remember that because Kurtz has the same letters in it, but it's Krutz, K-R-U-T-Z. This is the coroner's death certificate. It says right here on it, Malvina S. Krutz, that's her name, and then looks like, not sure what this, maybe 12 years in the county. But down here it says cause of death, drowning. And then it says traumatic sub, like something oid hemorrhage, probably I don't know if it's like subhematoid or whatever that. And then bruise above the left eye, and then maybe like contusions of lips. I don't know. Lacerations of lips. Okay, that's probably what that's what it says. So lacerations of lips, and then right here, it's I actually could figure out most of what this was. Found dead, submerged in water-filled bathtub and then I don't know if this says like warm water or something, but it says she had evidently been placed while unconscious from blow or blows on head. Okay, because that fits exactly what we were reading about yesterday. This part right here, I'm not totally sure what that says right there. in home where she had okay, that makes sense. In home where, yeah, that makes sense. Bathtub in home where she had evidently been played. That makes sense. All right. Well, it all means the same thing, but I'm not sure why not just write in print so everybody can just quickly read it. You always wonder about that. And you know, the only reference to this case I found on the internet, somebody made a long post on Reddit. Okay, and when I saw it, I go, I'm not going to read it because I don't want to read somebody else's opinion. So don't send me, you know, like sometimes when you guys want to send, oh, look at the Reddit, I don't want to hear anything about Reddit or web sleuths or anything like that. I like to just kind of do it myself, and then later on, if you get stuck or something, because they're just doing their opinion as well, plus with information they find the same way. All right, so there's that. I'm going to show you guys some of I downloaded a few extra articles first, and I'll go to those. So the new ones, I actually found reference to him. Second Lieutenant Charles Estelle Krutz, husband of Miss Malvina S. Krutz. So this is 1942 here. I mean, this is 16 years prior, so they've been married a long time. It's at the new Air Force Officer Training School, Miami Beach, Florida, to direct administrative and supply operations of rapidly expanding ground forces. He formerly was divisional manager of the Hargis truck line, Tell City, Indiana. I also saw where Charles, he'd gotten, you know, he had a couple reckless driving charges, and then he had to go to court in 1938 for an accident against an African-American individual. Of course, they use the derogatory term in the paper. So while reading through this, I won't say the word, but you might see on the screen what's now a derogatory term for a black person. I'm not sure how people considered it back then. I mean, it's in all the newspapers and everything. And also the word, oh yeah, by the way, we got a new, there we go, everybody. Clues. CLEWS. Okay, because that's all over these articles. All right, so I just want to let you guys know that if you see it, I can't do anything about it. It's just part of the article. All right, I won't read it though. So there was that. And there's another one from about a month later. Charles Krutz, husband of Miss Virginia, has completed a 6-week Virginia Street, a 6-week course of military instruction and physical conditioning at the Air Force's Officers Training School at Miami Beach, Florida, and has graduated into the Army Air Forces. All right, so yeah, he obviously served in World War II there. Okay. And then also, I'm going to read these two articles, all three of these next ones, because they're from the same early time period, January. She was killed on January 29th. And let me just go through the timeline that we have right here. So, January 29th, 1958, at 8 a.m., Charles Jr. The thing is, the son's name is Charles also. But he's not called a junior, he's Charles L. I'm just going to call him Junior, or son, or whatever. So at 8 a.m., Charles Jr. Krutz left home for school, and Malvina's still alive at that point. At 12 o'clock, Charles, the son, went home for lunch from school, 55, and let me go show you where that is. Very close to the house, actually. So there's school 55 right there, and they live right there. So it's just a really short little walk home. I mean, I wouldn't even imagine that's not even a mile. So if you go from here to there to here, yeah, it's half a mile. Are you guys still interested in this one? I thought about it for a lot. Like after the show, I was kind of amazed at how much information there. So at 12, Charles' son went home for lunch from school 55. He noticed the bedroom was ransacked, showing signs of a struggle, but wasn't suspicious. Malvina was in the bathroom at the time, and Malvina is alive. Okay. Charles talks to the mother through the bathroom door. Mother tells him to eat a sandwich prepared on the kitchen table. Mother also tells him, "Don't worry about the route, newspaper route. I'll take care of it this afternoon." So it makes me think that he was supposed to, when he goes home for lunch, he delivers papers. Because why would she say, "I'll deliver it this afternoon"? You don't worry about it. It's almost like he goes home for lunch, has a sandwich, and then delivers some newspapers, and then goes to school. She also said, "I'll take care of it this afternoon." So she probably just wanted him to go back to school to get out of there. And then at 12 also, so that's when the son made it home. Now the father, Charles Sr., at noon, he's over at a place called Mike's Bar on 802 South West Street. And then at 12:10, we're back to the house again. The milkman delivers milk, and Charles is home eating his lunch and talks to the milkman and tries talking to Mom again in the bathroom. And again, Malvina's still alive. The milkman at that time does see the car, Malvina's car, in the garage. Then at 12:45, Mrs. Warning, that's her actual name, and her name is Mildred Warning. Her and a woman named Florence were supposed to meet with Malvina at Malvina's home. So Miss Warning had called Malvina to confirm a visit, and a man answers and hears Malvina say, "Tell her not to pick me up today." And again, Malvina's alive because they hear her voice in the background. So she's still alive at 12:45. Yeah, and there's another article I was reading last night. I can't even remember which one it was. It had more information about that phone call where she talked to a guy. Okay, so we'll find that at some point, and we'll have to update this. Then at 1:40 p.m., Mildred Warning and Florence saw a man run from the house and drive away in Miss Krutz's 1955 Buick. And it had hardtop, painted two-tone, white. That's her car, though, so it doesn't really matter. I mean, that's her car, and they found it. And they said that it left going north, and then it turned, they said in the papers, turned west on 52nd, but that would have had to have been 53rd Street. And Mildred and Florence are the ones that saw this individual run out of the house, get in the car, and drive away. Thank you, Jessica Schubach.
Chewbacca? I'll be Chewbacca if you want me to.
There we go. See, we get to hear Cairo every single day on the show, and some random person. Jessica Schubach. All right, so that was at 1:40 when the friends went to the house, saw somebody running out. Then they went behind the house and entered. I didn't put that in there, though, but I'll put that in there later. At 1:55, let's see, let me put that in there. Went behind, went to the back door, and went through and opened door. Okay. And then at 1:55, Charles Sr., so just 15 minutes after the girls were at that house, and saw the guy leaving. Well, at 1:55, Charles Sr. visits a friend named Charles Fleck. So it's actually a guy. I found this out later last night. Charles Fleck, he was a 28-year-old person. And he lives at 2714 East Michigan, and it's some sort of rooming house. And it's a 15-minute drive, which fits perfectly to 1:40 to 1:55. Okay, then at 2:45, Charles Sr. leaves the Fleck house. 3:20, Charles Sr. is seen at 202 Southwest Street. And then at 3:30, he is back at the office at Southern Transportation. What's weird, though, there's a gap here, right here. You know, he visits the friend, but there's a gap right there. So he leaves the house at 2:45, and then he's seen at 3:20, but that distance isn't far away, so we were missing 15, 35, 35 minutes right there, right? Then at 3:30 p.m., Charles Sr. is back at the office at Southern Transportation Company. Then at 3:35, Charles, the son, returns home from school. He went home for lunch, and then he probably just walked back to school. It's only a half mile. And never saw his mom while he was at home because she was in the bathroom. And I think we almost all believe that at that point, there's an individual in the house keeping her in the bathroom, and she's doing all she can to get him to leave. Like, hey, eat the sandwich, and tell you what, I'll do the paper so you can just go back to school, basically, right? And then husband Charles Krutz, 48, is home just before 5 p.m. And then we find out later that when he gets home at 5, his son is watching a specific television program, and he looks for his wife, and he goes into the bathroom, and the bathroom tub actually has the curtain fully shut. So that made him a little bit nervous because it's almost always open unless somebody's in it. So then he opened it up, and she was lying face up in the water, drowned. Okay, so that's kind of like the timeline stuff. And then, as we remember yesterday, there was a pillow between the bed and wall. Well, the part that I don't really, the description and the chart don't match, or the diagram, I mean. So you look at the diagram here. You got the two beds, and then this bed. This is one of the things I was noticing, is that this bed is so much bigger than these. It almost feels like this is the, I don't know. And the paper said that the pillows were found in the bedroom, but the pants were found in the boy's bedroom. So doesn't that make you feel, when you hear something like that, I don't know if this is a newspaper coming up with their own sketch or where they provided this. Because one of the things that was mentioned was that a pillow was between the bed and the wall. So in this case, there wouldn't be a way to do that, but in this room, you could put a pillow between a bed and the wall, right there or here, and also have the option where it said that there were pillows at the end of each bed. So I don't know for sure how accurate this diagram is. This seems like something somebody in the newspaper made, not an official law enforcement diagram and information. And they might have just based it on what they were listening to. Or not listening, reading in their own papers by investigations. But right here, it seems like the pillow might be there, and maybe another one here, and the pants are over here. Now, why it's like that, I don't know. It's something to theorize about, but I might have to actually check. I mean, I think it'd be cool to be able to get the files on this one. It seems like they might release something like this since it's so old. All right, so let me get back to the newer. They're right on the 31st, but these are ones that I hadn't had before, so let's see. So this is one I haven't read yet. Police found an automobile today missing from the home of Miss Malvina Krutz, 41 years old, whose battered body was found in a water-filled bathtub in her Indianapolis home. The car turned up 11 blocks from the Krutz home on the north side. Two women friends of the mysteriously drowned housewife told police Wednesday they saw a man drive away in the car early afternoon. That was 1:40. Charles Krutz, 48, called police after returning home from work to find his wife's partially clothed and submerged body in the bathtub. An examination of the body indicated that Miss Krutz may have been knocked unconscious from a blow on the head and placed in the bathtub. The blow may have caused a brain hemorrhage. Meanwhile, it was learned that Mrs. Krutz had filed a divorce on January 13th. There were indications that the couple had tried to effect a reconciliation. Hey, thanks, LM. Hey, look at that. No passwords. Yeah, I don't think it's that weird, actually. I think the era is a little bit like that, actually. I think I remember seeing. I think I actually do remember seeing my grandparents have the same thing. Agnes and Gus. I mean, Agnes and Gus are so that time, right? The name Agnes and the name Gus. Not many people named Gus anymore. Not many people named Agnes. The Krutz 9-year-old son, Charles, was watching television when his father arrived home Wednesday. The boy said he thought his mother was out delivering papers. Let's see. An attorney revealed that he had represented Mrs. Krutz in a divorce action several years ago, but that the couple were reconciled then. So they guess they were talking about getting a divorce at another time. All right. So this is another one that I didn't read yesterday. A yellow lead pencil with strands of hair embedded in the wood near the point was discovered last night and called the hottest lead so far in the bizarre bathtub slang of Miss Malvina Krutz. And police held for questioning the second suspect in the case, a workman. And I actually learned too that the house had just had a fire or something inside of it not too long before, and there had been a lot of people going over there painting and fixing the damage. Okay. Homicide detectives said the pencil inscribed White County REMC Monticello was taken to the police laboratory for analysis. It wasn't immediately determined whether the hair strands were from Miss Krutz's head, but it was determined that her hair came from the head of a female. The strands were long and fine. Okay, that's what we were talking about. See, that's interesting, right? That's exactly what we were saying. So they think it was a... Thank you, Lori Staggs.
Chewbacca? I'll be Chewbacca if you want me to.
Enjoying the show. Profound heart. Thanks, Gray.
Thank you. The strands were long and fine. A spectrograph test was planned for today to show whether they came from the Mrs. Krutz's body. Ed Ulrich, manager of the Rural Electric Membership Cooperative at Monticello, said the pencils were used in the office there and branches. Emphasis was placed on the hair strands by detectives because the forehead and scalp of the slain woman showed lacerations. Detectives theorized a pencil in the coat or shirt pocket of the killer could have caused such a mark during a scuffle. And I think this might even be the actual picture. I mean, how crazy is that they put that out there? I mean, I see a hair, right? I don't know if that's what that is, or I don't know. This might just be a picture of a pencil. Telltale pencil, all hairs, murder clue. See, CLEWS right there, right? The woman, Mrs. Florence Kubert, 42, of 155. Let's see. And the man was driving too fast to make identification possible. In other recent developments, Mrs. Krutz's car was found parked at 4936 North Meridian, so now we have the exact spot where that was parked. So it was right there. I just put right... This is the intersection they gave before. Now we have the specific... That's the address they're talking about. That looks like a newer type house right there. I bet you a long time ago this was just packed full of normal, regular houses. Let's see. Was found parked at 4936 North Meridian. Police removed the bedroom door from the Krutz home and are inspecting it for fingerprints. Circuit court records disclose Miss Krutz had filed for divorce on grounds her husband failed to meet his conjugal obligations. Wow. Man, that's kind of a little insulting. The couple was to appear in court January 17th, but failed to do so. Hey, thanks, Billy Boy Blue.
Just a quick in and out. Gray is the man. End transmission.
Thanks. Charles E. Krutz, 48 years old, sales manager for the Southern Transportation Company, who discovered his wife's body Wednesday night, told detectives that the pencil under police examination does not belong to him. Krutz refused to discuss finding of the pencil with reporters. I don't know any more about it, and that's that. Mrs. Warning, who had taken a pencil and paper from her purse to write a note to Miss Krutz during a visit to the Krutz home the afternoon of the slaying, said she returned her pencil to her purse before leaving. James E. Krutz, Winnemic farmer and brother of Charles, said, "It is possible Miss Krutz's son took some of the rural electric pencils home with him after a visit to Winnemic. The pencils are easily obtained in the area," he said. James Krutz said his Indianapolis relatives frequently visited him, the last time the week following Christmas. The couple appeared in good spirits. He said James said it had not been to Indianapolis in about 2 years. Miss Warning and Miss Kubert, close friends of the dead woman and co-worker with her, let me see, what did that just say? And Miss Warning and Miss Kubert, close friends of the dead woman and co-workers. All right. With her in activities at Northwood Christian Church. Okay, so they all kind of work together at the church. Yesterday, retraced verbally the events which led to Miss Krutz's home. They were in the house about 20 minutes without knowledge their friend was dead, they said. Right. That's what we were saying yesterday. It's like, wow, she's dead in the bathtub and they're in the home for 20 minutes just hanging out. It's also, well, when the son got home from school at 3:45, he never even had to use the bathroom. Because there's only one bathroom in this house. Or maybe he tried even, and the dad, no, but he could have opened it. It wouldn't be able to be locked unless somebody went out a window or something. But they didn't mention that. Are you guys still talking about that? Jesus Christ! We're moving on to the next parts of this. That was so long ago. Jesus had nothing to do with it, Gray. Okay, sorry. Yeah, if you keep focusing too much on that, you're going to miss a lot of the details, and then you'll start asking the questions. Okay, a simple answer is he wasn't having sex with her. Boom. Next, we're on to the next part. All right, he had been after, let's see, now I don't even know where the hell it was. Christian church yesterday. They were in the house about 20 minutes without knowledge their friend was dead. I called Malvina at 12:45 p.m., said Miss Warning. I know what time it was because you can see the clock there on the wall at her home. What do you mean at her home? I called Malvina at 12:45, said Miss Warning. Maybe at her other friend's house. She had been after us to come over and see the work being done at her home because there was a fire, right? So they were over there and they were, there was a lot of people in and out of the house putting up drywall, not drywall, but like wallpaper, paint. Maybe there was drywall. I don't know. But she goes, hey, come over and check it out. They had a plan. She had been after us to come over and see the work being done on her home. She was really proud of it. I was ashamed of myself the way I had been putting her off. She was a busy person, active in so many things. PTA, we wanted to let her know we were coming. A man answered the telephone. So when they called, a man answered the telephone. It wasn't her husband. I know the voice. You know the husband's voice. I know the voice. I asked if I might speak to Malvina. So this is that new information that I was telling you. So let me get this out here. 12:45. Okay, so this is going to be... The man said, you know, so that's kind of weird, right? So she says, can I speak to Malvina? And he said, spoke to man, he said, well, I didn't put this in yet because I didn't want to give away some of the stuff that was I just read or just a few minutes before. Said, well, and then I got the impression he was a workman, she said. I asked him to give Malvina a message. Okay, so, and then, so it was Mrs. Warning said to give Malvina a message. Tell her that we were coming over to see the new work on the house. Okay. Tell her that let's see, Mrs. Kubert and I are heading over to see the work on the house. Okay. Yeah, we got to get all this in there. I'm actually making, you know, as I'm going, probably pretty close to the script, okay, for the Nefarious version of this. I heard Malvina say, so in the background, she could hear Malvina say, tell Mrs. Warning. Malvina replies in the background. Tell Mrs. Warning that I have to take Buddy, her son, to school and will pick her up at 1:30. Weird. Okay. Pick her up at 1:30. Mrs. Warning described the man as polite, courteous, and in his conversation. So that's kind of weird. God, what if she was having an affair at home, and the husband found out about it? He was watching the home, saw the guy go in there. That's why there is some evidence in there. And then he kills her after watching the guy. Maybe the guy that ran out of the house. I don't know. God. Yeah, I'm going to have to get rid of Anna Morris in here. We're just going through it, alright? Thanks. Can't stand it. Yeah, he did. He communicated with her. Yeah, we already went through all that, Anna Morris, okay? Try to watch other shows and, you know, pay attention. We've already gone through that exact stuff. That it seems like the guy was in the bathroom, the killer in the bathroom with her at the time. All right? Thanks. Sometimes I just want to turn off chat, you know, so I can just do the show. Yeah, and why would he even answer the phone, you know? I mean, it's just crazy that why did he answer the phone? Because what if her husband was calling? Let me ask you that. What if her husband called? Why would a worker answer the phone? I mean, I guess it could kind of make, like, maybe she said, hey, could you get that? Because he wasn't posing a threat at that time. Man, that's crazy, right? Well, I don't know, man. What if the husband knew that she was having an affair? Because remember, we just talked about how he wasn't having sex with her, right? And so what if he found that out? And he knew that. But then who was the person running? Ah, jeez. Okay. Alright, so I asked him to give Malvina a message. Tell her that we... Wait, but also, how did Malvina know what the question was? I heard Malvina say, tell Miss Warning that I have to take... Or maybe she didn't, she just blurted that out. Wait, tell Miss Warning that I have to take Buddy, your son, to school. No, she must have known because they were just randomly saying, hey, we're going to come over and check out the home. So how did she know? I mean, it's not like, I'm not sure that there were speaker phones back then. Miss Warning described the man as polite, courteous in his conversation. She said her suspicions were not aroused by the fact that the man answered the telephone. She said several men had been working on the house repairing damage caused by fire on December 16th. Okay, so that's when the fire was, let's see. December 16th, 1957. Fire at home. I'd like to know what happened there. Okay. And so that means it was probably 6 weeks later. Okay. Man answered the phone. She said several men had been working on the house repairing damage caused by fire on December 16th, some on the inside. Miss Warning and Miss Kubert were 10 minutes late for the appointment. Right, but I mean, here's the thing is, why did they go over there? If you say that she told you, hey, I'll be there at 1:30 to pick you up, and you guys got there at 1:40, are you guys that impatient that you wait, you know, like they would have had to leave their house at exactly 1:30. Like, where is she? Okay, let's go over there ourselves. You know, I mean, that's just so ridiculous. Like, so because they got there at 1:40, and she said, I'll pick you up at 1:30 because I had dropped my kids off. But you were so impatient that you drove over and were at her house at 1:40, saw a guy get in a car, take off and run. Then you went around the back of the house and entered a door that was ajar, went inside the house, waited for 20 minutes, and were so upset that she bailed on you guys. Well, hey, how about this? How do you know she wasn't over where, you know, on her way back from trying to pick you up? Because you were supposed to be there at 1. I mean, that's crazy, right? They even left the house at 2 o'clock. Now Gene Fish is going, hey, see, I told you there was something weird about... I'm just saying it's weird. I don't know, you know, I'm not saying... It's just really bizarre to me. You heard in the background her saying, I'll pick you up at 1:30. Well, let's say, you know, Maybe you guys waited till 1:35 and then said, screw it. And then you took off, got over there, and you sat around in her house waiting for her. You don't think that'd be a little weird when she got back home from trying to pick you up, and then you're sitting in the living room, and then you get so upset you wrote a sort of a nasty note. Well, good, we're never going to do it again. Well, how about this? They were going to come pick you up. She was going to pick you up, and you guys weren't there, and maybe she waited outside thinking maybe you were busy doing something. Doesn't that make more sense? Instead, you waited about 3 seconds, drove over there, walked inside the house, sat in there for 20 minutes. Yeah, well, there was a bloody towel at that back door, yeah. I mean, I don't know. They didn't put that in that diagram either, so. Miss Warning and Miss Kubert, as in Kubitschek, just kidding, were 10 minutes late for the appointment. As they approach the Krutz home, yeah, right here, from the south on Guilford. Does that make sense? Let me see. Where do they live? Warning. No, she's over there. Where's the other lady? Florence Kubert. From the south. That doesn't make any sense. Wait, I'm kind of confused right now. Oh yeah, that doesn't make sense. That's right, they all live really close. Okay. So this is Florence Kubert and Warning. So yes, they would be from the south. They would have driven like that. Okay, that makes sense. From the south on Guilford Avenue, she said Mrs. Krutz's car was backed out of the driveway. Backing out of the driveway. So it was backing out of the driveway. So let's take a look at what we're looking at here. This is the home. The two friends drove this direction up the road right here. And then as they pulled up, they saw a car backing out of this driveway right here. This one. Let me go one more space. Yeah. So it was backing out of this driveway as the car was going down the street. And by the way, that is... I mean, look how... The house hasn't even changed at all. Look at this. It's crazy. It's the same damn thing. I mean, look at the... It's just taken from a low angle. Even has the steps right there. The little entryway there. That see? Even has the house number is exactly in the same spot. I don't even know if they've changed that. And look at the tree, the Y tree right there. I like stuff like that. Thanks,
Don't
Rena
forget a cup
Maloney.
of coffee.
Yeah. Yeah, don't forget a cup of coffee. We had to slow... Okay, the car was backing out of the driveway. We had to slow for it. So they saw it come out and they sort of stopped. I said, Florence, honk your horn. Honk, honk. There goes Malvina. Well, how about at that point? Didn't you think she was a little bit late picking you up? And then wouldn't you... Oh, and then maybe they did, and then they sat around waiting for her to come back. But again, why did you drive there that quickly? Then we saw it was a man. He had on a headgear of some kind. We couldn't identify him. Wow. We don't know if he is white or black. She said, how does that look like, Malvina? What? She, Miss Kubert, said, now does that look like Malvina? Not how, now. Now does that look like Malvina? Alright, so So let's see. Let me add some stuff to this. Let's see. North on Gill. Okay. Saw a car backing out of driveway. Had to slow for it. Saw a man driving it, but the person had on headgear. I wonder what that means. We can all guess at stuff. Thanks, Gwen Jackson. Okay. All right. This is a lot more. I'm glad I pulled this one up because it's a little bit more detailed than the other ones. I said, Florence, honk your horn, honk. There goes Malvina. So then the women waited in the house for 20 minutes, then wrote, say, a nasty note, because that's what it was. They said that in the earlier article. And left when Mrs. Krutz failed to appear. Miss Warning described Miss Krutz as a forceful, friendly person. Whatever the hell that means. A woman who loved her home. She said Miss Krutz had been in excellent frame of mind since reaching a divorce agreement with her husband, which would let her keep the house. Ooh, that's a little bit different. Police today gave little credence to a report that Miss Krutz's car found on North Meridian Street yesterday is the same one reported to have been seen in about the same location Tuesday. Right, so somebody said, oh, we saw it there on Tuesday, but it probably wasn't. Fingerprints found at the scene will be compared with those of all persons known to have done repair work around the Krutz home. Born at Louisville, Miss Krutz had lived in Indiana. Huh, okay, I was looking for that. Lived in Indianapolis since 1946. I think she'd been in Indiana. They lived in Evandale, I think. She was a member of the Northwood Christian Church and Church Circle. Funeral service will be 2 p.m. Sunday. The husband and son survived. Okay. So that was the new articles that I found after the show. And now we can get back to this monstrosity over here. Yeah, I mean, whatever headgear is, we don't know what a hard hat, hard hat, headgear, we don't know. They just said headgear. Could be anything. Could be a football helmet. Could be a balaclava. All right. So we got to the diagram, but I remember we were just going to do this, and then I said, okay, well, let's do this tomorrow. All right, so here we go. There's some interesting stuff in this article. All right, including a couple dogs. Hey, thanks, Miss Gus. Police said last night that Charles E. Krutz and Charles Fleck may be asked to take lie detector tests. So remember, I just told you guys earlier that Charles Fleck is the individual that he went to see at, I think it was hold on. My brain is... Yeah, 155, which is an exact 15-minute drive from their house, where at 140 a car was leaving the house.
Awesome work as always, Gray. Growing heart. Smiling face with hearts. Growing heart.
Yeah, I already put that in, Dana. I already said it. All right, police said last night that Charles E. Krutz and Charles Fleck may be asked to take lie detector tests about their actions on the afternoon when Krutz's 41-year-old wife died in Northside home. Chief Frank A. Mueller said it is standard procedure to ask persons to take such a test when any of their statements are in question. Our detectives are not satisfied with the stories those two gave. You're going to have to be a little quicker next time, Dana. I know you guys are just waiting. Let's see, what's my name again? Like 19 people type in Gray before I mean Gray. Yeah, you did try. Okay, so Fleck, he was only 28. Hey, thanks, Kit Kat. Oh, cool. Have you been sleeping? I mean, you go to bed earlier or what?
Chewbacca? Oh, I'll be Chewbacca if you want me to.
I haven't been able to stay long in the lives lately. I have missed you all and am super happy to be here with you all.
Yeah, polygraph, Salty, yeah. They gave polygraph tests all the time back then. They actually thought they were really important. What do you mean, polygraph with a question mark? Yeah, polygraph test, yeah. Okay. So anyways, police said last night that Charles E. Krutz and Charles Fleck may be asked to take lie detector tests about their actions on the afternoon when Krutz's 41-year-old wife died in the Northside home. Chief Frank A. Mueller said it is standard procedure to ask persons to take such a test when any of their statements are in question. Our detectives are not satisfied with the stories those two gave. Fleck, 28, he lived on 2714 East Michigan Street, is one of the two persons who accounted for about an hour of the more than 3 hours when Krutz was away from his job. So we don't, makes it, Krutz seems more and more, like interesting. Charles, the dad, because he, like, why is he away from work for 3 hours? The other was Fleck's landlady, Miss Josephine Funk. Other new developments yesterday were a survey of neighbors who have a good view of the Krutz house at 5268 Guilford Avenue and were home that afternoon, revealed that only one of 4 neighbors have been questioned by police during the 6 days since Miss Krutz's mysterious death. So that's pretty weird that they didn't interview any of these people. Detective Stanley P. McDonald, one of the 2 detectives in charge of the case, said things are liable to start popping in the case late today. He hinted police have valuable information that has not been made public. A clear fingerprint, that of a left thumb, has been lifted from the bedroom door of the Krutz home, and police are making a round-the-clock check of it against their files. The death of attractive Miss Malvina Krutz, which was termed murder by coroner Roy B. Storms, produced a set of baffling leads which police have been unable to fit together. Yeah, we feel all the same. I think you can put things together, but it's just, I think most of the stuff that you put together shows that there's an opportunity for the husband to have done something. And it's interesting that her 2 friends said how happy she was that she was going to go through a divorce and that she was going to get the house. So it seems like it was a little bit further along than we're hearing, right? Or heard prior to this. No, it's this one else. Okay, let's take a look at that last page again now, just a second. This one has a diagram on here. So, it's really amazingly how similar everything is. Watch. So they're looking at it like this in this picture. So I mean, look at how, let me see if I can. Now that's the Krutz home right there. There's the garage right there. Then this longer home right there. And then their garage right there. And then there's this home, which is this one. Looks like maybe little changes have been made. And then they say that there's a dog basically like right here that were pinned back here. That's the Krutz home. Looks like they even put in the Y tree right there. That's the driveway. Definitely can still see that. See, the driveway goes back in there, fills up that whole area. The car was backing out of that. So. All right. So now we're on to that next page. We'd seen this diagram but of the bedroom. I don't know how accurate it is. That's the problem. Because early on they said that one of the pillows was between the bed and the wall, and none of these are doing that. This has a space between the bed and the wall. That's the master bedroom. 4 close neighbors of the Krutz family said they neither heard nor saw any of the 7 persons known to be at the home last Wednesday. Wow. 7 people. Well, so that would be 3 of family members. Oh yeah, so okay, 3 family members. And then the 2 friends. So I wonder who those other 2 were. Probably the some of the work people that they've questioned. Yeah, it could be anything, Elizabeth. Like hundreds of different things. Yeah. Yep. Miss Harry G. Coughlin Jr., whose home at 5265 Guilford Avenue is directly across from the one-story Krutz house, said she was in her front room most of the day, but saw only the 2 women visitors. So she lives right here. That's the address. So from here, she saw the 2 women show up and go to the house, the 2 friends. All right, so this is kind of important here. 2 dogs which bark loudly at persons in the Krutz yard, where a mystery driver got in the family car and sped away at 1:45 p.m. I thought it was 1:40, but Wednesday were not heard barking that afternoon by any of the neighbors. So it normally would bark and bark. The dogs would bark and bark, but they didn't bark this time. Well, but that's interesting though, because the 2 women said that they went in the back door, and if the dogs weren't barking then it's not even that weird now at this point that the dog didn't bark when an assailant might have gone in there. Right? Anyways, I'm going to take a little short break here. Hold on a second. Yeah, I've been doing this true crime thing for quite a while now. And during this whole time, I have... Be back in a minute. Yep. I couldn't find the, I was trying to find the house fire. I went back to look. No, that's what I was looking at. No, I couldn't find anything on the house fire. That's what I was looking for. Got something to drink and I was looking for the house fire. So, didn't find anything. There's probably just some small internal, although it's hard to, it's hard to say really, but how big it was, because it seemed like there was a lot of workers over there. I would think it would have been in the paper on the 17th. See, you can see on my screen, I was looking that up. See. House fire, December 17th, 1957. There's examples, but they're not. That's Indianapolis. How about house fire? And then I'll put no. So nothing there. Thanks, Salty. Okay, so now we're on to this one. I showed you guys the picture on the previous, we were just looking at this. So that's where the dogs were, right over here. Alright, so 2 dogs which bark loudly at persons in the Krutz yard, where a mystery driver got in the family car and sped away at 1:40, not 1:45, Wednesday, were not heard barking that afternoon by any of the neighbors. Patrolman James L. Mullen, one of the first policemen on the scene after Krutz reported finding his wife's body in the bathtub of their home, pointed out possible discrepancies in the 48-year-old trucking executive's 2 accounts of the day's events. Krutz told Mullen, so the father, see, he's got discrepancies too. Krutz told Mullen that he entered the house by the front door late that afternoon, but his statement to detectives said it was the back door. Mullen says. The husband's statements also report he took off his watch and other jewelry, but kept on his shirt before going into the bathroom. But Mullen says the shirt Krutz was wearing looked unworn. I'm not sure what that really means. I mean, you're assuming that when he went into the bathroom, he grabbed her and picked her up and it would have destroyed his shirt. Or, made it wrinkly or wet or something. Going to the bathroom, but Mullen says the shirt Krutz was wearing looks unworn. Neither Krutz nor Fleck would say last night whether they would agree to a lie detector test. Fleck, a former afternoon manager at Thompson's restaurant, who now is unemployed, refused to talk with a Star reporter and closed the door at the rooming house where he lives. McDonald, so he just answered and then shut it. I'm not going to talk. McDonald's and Sergeant Earl E. Booth yesterday were at Franklin to testify at a murder trial. Chief Mueller answered criticism of his department's handling of the case by saying he has several men working on various aspects of it. He said 7 men from the Identification Bureau spent more than 12 hours in the Krutz home after the murder, and evidence from the house still is being examined. We must gather evidence in such a way that in such a way that if and when we make an arrest, we can take that person before a judge and jury and get a conviction. Sounds like it's one of those cases where they have a pretty good circumstantial stuff, but they decided to never go to trial. And I think, man, if you're getting late in the years, you just give it a shot, you know, see what happens. All right, now we're moving on to at least things that I hadn't clicked on yesterday's show. All right, so now we got through the A, B in the diagram. Now we're on the 6th here, short one. Lie test is planned in Hoosier slang. Detectives said today that Charles E. Krutz, husband of woman found dead in her bathtub under mysterious circumstances last week, has agreed to submit a lie detector test. They said Krutz probably will be given the test Friday in connection with the drowning of Miss Malvina Krutz, 41, whom Krutz found dead when he returned from work. A similar test will be given to Charles Fleck, a friend of Krutz, who told police Krutz was in Fleck's apartment during an important hour. It's also a little, it's weird, you know, he was there at 1:40, the house was leaving, a car was leaving the house at 1:40, and then all of a sudden this Fleck guy knows that he got there at 1:55. But the thing is why would you want to be, if he is an alibi person, wouldn't you come up with something that's different? Like, yeah, he was at my house at about, 1:40. Instead, it's this exact time frame, because it takes 15 minutes to drive from the Krutz's home to Fleck's house. And when the two neighbors showed up, the two friends of Malvina showed up, was at 1:40, and the car's pulling out, and then 15 minutes later, the exact amount of time it takes to drive, a car shows up at Fleck's house, which is Charles, right? You know, I'm sure there's some wiggle room here. It's not exactly 1:55, and it's not exactly 1:40. They didn't say that, Gene. None of that was said. What you just typed in right there. My God. Jesus. Let's see. Let me get back to the... we're moving on to 7. Gotta have the Gene moment. Yes, everybody. Fresh pressed shirt. No wrinkles. Crisp, as it were. All right, the dog's not barking is a big clue. Well, maybe, Susanna. I mean, those two girls, the ladies that went over there, they'd never been over there. So why wasn't it barking at the ladies? I think it's just one of those things that might be a clue and it might not be. I don't think it's a big anything. I know that you want to insert the dogs as being really important in the case because that's your gig, but I don't know if it's a big anything. Thanks, Lee D. Gene Fish, the human encyclopedia. Even the most common words she'll define in agonizing detail. I gotta do. I'm gonna make an audio clip for that. Gene. Let's see.
Gene Fish, the human encyclopedia.
Oh man. Yeah, Genopedia. There you go. Okay, lie test clears. Look at this one. Lie test clears Krutz and friend. They never say that anymore. I mean, lie detector, I think a lot of people were cleared back in the day with these lie detector tests that are absolutely proven to not be very accurate. They only use them to see if you'll take it. And then once you take it, they're like, oh shit, they're already kind of on their back feet at that point. And then they go through the whole rigmarole, and if they find a couple of things that are off, they'll go, oh God, you massively failed it, to try to get you to... Oh, that is true. They do put quotes on them. I didn't know they had air quotes back then. Police said, or they could just be actually quoting, right? Police said this afternoon that lie detector tests had cleared both Charles E. Krutz and his friend Charles Fleck in the bathtub murder of Krutz's wife here last week. The 48-year-old Krutz spent about 4.5 hours at the police station. At the end, detectives said, expressed a desire to continue helping with the investigation. So he said he wanted to keep helping. He had undergone an hour and 35-minute lie detector test and then additional questioning in the homicide division office. Fleck, 28, spent about 50 minutes in the lie test. As Krutz finished the test, his 10-year-old son, Charles L., so the same first name, was brought to headquarters and spent 30 minutes in the juvenile aid division. Why the boy was brought to headquarters was not disclosed. See, the boy is a big part of the story. Actually, I might try to get a hold of him, actually. I know what is, I have some information how to get a hold of him. But he, he knows what was going on, right? He was there. I mean, he was there when the dad got home. He would know if there's anything fishy. But there's a time frame that we're missing. If I go back to my chart here, you can see where I keep saying Malvina's alive at 12:10. She's alive at 12:45. And then at 1:40, so she got killed between 1:45 and 1:40. Because at 1:40 they show up and see somebody running out of the house. Or running out of the house, get in the car and drove. Well, they saw the car backing out, I guess. So, I mean, I'm not sure who saw the person running out of the house. They said they saw a car backing out. See, there's a lot of discrepancies even in people's stories. Because remember before it was they saw somebody run out of the house, get into the car and drive away. Well, now it's, well, we were driving down the street and the car backed out and we just had to slow down. So she was killed right during a lunch hour, near the end, or, even could be, some people take lunch at 1. And so, she's killed, I think, right at this time, 12 o'clock, when the son got home from lunch. The killer, or whoever ended up killing her, is already in the house. So he's been in the house from at least noon and is seen leaving at 1:40. We're not going to get to know what time that whoever answered that phone got there. Man, I don't know. It makes it seem like the person who answered the phone wasn't even a nefarious. Yeah, man, see, here's what my theory was last night. That the husband parked the car right over here, let's say at 11, not even 11:50, at, I don't know, let's just say 1 o'clock even. No, that couldn't have been 1. Had to have been noon. See, that's what's so weird when the sun was home. It's crazy. So let's say about 11:45 he parks here, then walks over to this area, to his home, and he parks his own car over there, walks to his home, goes into the house, confronts his wife, has her in the bathroom when the son comes home for lunch, because he doesn't want his son to know that he's there, because obviously his son knows who he is. I mean, and he's there to kill his wife during this time frame. Prior to that, no, see, that doesn't make sense. God, see, I totally get what the police are doing, because at 1:40 a phone call was made. No, what time is it? 12:45 a phone call was made to the house, and it wasn't the husband, and it was some other person. So that can't be that. Man, no wonder they're all confused. Right, so that was sort of making sense for a second there, but now that doesn't. So let's try to picture this then. So at 12:45, It sounds like there's a different person in the home when the... Okay, so the person who answered the phone, how could that have just been a worker if the mother didn't come out of the bathroom the whole time the son was there? Right? Yeah, maybe Salty. Let's just kind of go with what we're working through this, okay? It's just doing... Oh, yep. Husband hired hitman. Show's over. Let's just work through what we're talking about here, okay? Because there's little traps that are... Okay, so at noon, the son comes home, and in the bathroom, the mother is, right? And we all believe at that point, the killer is with her in the bathroom. That's why she never exited the bathroom. So, it seems like this in a way helps the husband out quite a bit, because when at 12:45, obviously it has to be the same person who was holding her in the bathroom at noon that would be answering the phone at 12:45. Do you guys agree with that? It has to be. I mean, if you believe that she was being held in the bathroom at noon, then well, unless there's like two killers, right? But let's just say there's one. The same person who answers the phone at 12:45 has to be the person that was holding her. And it could have also been the affair angle is still in play here, because it could have been that he's a worker and was also having an affair with her, because while her husband's at work, the worker might have been, somebody she was attracted to, and he was there having sex with her, and they quickly bolted into the bathroom because she forgot her kid was going to be home right at that time. Or maybe even knew it, but whatever, something happened, one thing led to the other, and they started having sex. So they ran into the bathroom. She'd already made lunch for him at 11:45. Said, hey, eat your sandwich. Yeah, I'll do this later. And tried to get him out of the house, right? And then at 12:45, the phone rings, and the guy answered the phone because he's working on the house. He doesn't really care. And then they're going to head over, and then maybe between 12:45 and 1:40, something happened to her, but that guy might have left, and the husband may have seen that happen. Except for the fact that at noon he's at a bar, and then, holy shit, when did he leave the bar, for God's sakes? Wow. Yeah, the affair thing definitely is possible, but that would make it so that guy wasn't the killer, and then it brings back the husband into the story. Okay, let's get back up to the timeline here. So let's just say the milkman, ironically, delivers milk. Maybe he was somebody else that she was attracted to. Talks to, I'm just kidding, but anyways, talks to Charles, and then, says, hey, Charles, here's some milk or whatever, and then he says something to the mom in the bathroom. I don't know what was said. Then at 12:45, a phone call's made. Melina's still alive, because she said in the background, tell Miss Warning that I have to take Buddy to the school and we'll pick her up at 1:30. Okay, so then what that means to me then is at 12:45, right after her son left, the guy that maybe she was having an affair with bailed. He took off somehow. Maybe went out the back door, snuck through the... I don't know how he would have got out of there. But there was a guy in the house. It doesn't seem like that's the same person that would have been leaving at 1:40. Maybe. It could have been. But why would you need to kill her if she was willingly having an affair with you? But if she wasn't having an affair with you, or, why would you be answering the phone? See, the answering the phone is something that means something. Weird stuff. So up at 1:30, and then these women show up anyways, just 10 minutes later. Oh, you're not at my house. And let me ask you this too. Did she say that because she was going to drop the guy off that she was with? That's why, because this part here, it confused me. The friend said, hey, we're going to come over and check it out. So why would Miss Malvina need to go pick up the two women, right? Why would she need to do that? They were going to come over. But she says, hey, I'll pick you up at 1:30. Oh, as if she's going to give a ride home to the guy that was in the house with her. Maybe. But, yeah, man, it is. You got to admit, you got to see, I mean, we're seeing a lot of the information the police had. I'm sure they have more. You can see how crazy this is. It's all over the place, right? I mean, we're... So back up at the graph here. See, at noon, the husband is at Mike's bar. Okay, but was he at Mike's bar the entire time? Let's see how close Mike's bar is. I do have it in here. I don't know why I can't see it. No, there it is. Alright, so that's where Mike's bar is. Way over there. So, you know, approximately... Yeah, probably 7 or 8 miles away at a bar at noon when the son's at home. But then the next time we hear from him, the husband, he shows up at 1:55. So you're gonna, you know, he's having a few drinks. Man, he really feels like I want to know what evidence and proof that he was at that bar the whole time. You know, he probably went there, had a couple drinks, and he went by the house or something, saw something going on. Because he's got an hour and 55 minutes. You know, we know that he was at the bar at noon, but then he was at his friend's house at 1:55. So where was he really between 12 and 1:55? Part of that we know he's driving. Who's Millicent? What are you talking about? Malvina, you mean? I don't know. The kid must have obviously gone to school. He was only, you know, he just went back to school probably because the mom said she would deliver the papers. I bet you he had a noon paper delivery, something like that. Hey, thanks, Jessica. It is interesting. It's one of the more interesting ones that you're going to find. I have the same feel as the case that we covered a few weeks back. This one just has more information.
Thanks for covering this case, it's really interesting.
Yeah, like Leota Camp. Like that was similarly, you know, it was interesting, just had a little less information. Like quite a bit. Like there isn't really many cases out there that have this much information. Yeah, I mean, I think it seems like, you know, he probably had a couple drinks. I mean, you can make an argument he had time. He definitely had time. But where did the person go that was in the house with her at 12:45? Because, you know, you wonder if he was faking an accent. I mean, it's possible that the husband was actually already there at 12:45 and he was faking an accent. Although, I think him noticing or witnessing maybe somebody leave the house that she was having an affair with would have been really something that would create something like that, where he bashed her in the head and tried to smother her maybe, then put her in a... I mean, the women didn't know who she was. Or who they didn't recognize the voice, I meant. Mrs. Warning. Man, I think this might be like a 10-parter. I'm having a hard time getting through just every time you go through it, you have to kind of work things back together again. He had undergone an hour and 35 minutes. Okay, why the boy was brought in. Krutz told police earlier the investigation he had visited Fleck at the latter's residence the day Malvina Krutz was found drowned in the bathtub. Almost like an alibi witness. Perfect timing, except I think you would have told the friend, hey, tell him I got here at... except I don't think the friend knew about it. He didn't want to involve anybody. He just wanted to be seen somewhere. Oh, I was at a bar and then I was over here, you know, and that's all he wanted. I don't think he would have told that other person, and the reason I don't think that is because if he was telling that person, he would have came up with a much better time. He would have been like, yeah, you saw I was over at your house at 1:30, right? Now we have the exact address of where the car was found. It was found at 4936 North Meridian Street. But it's just that house isn't there anymore. I can tell the house that's there is brand new. And Krutz told police early in the investigation that he had visited Fleck at the latter's residence the day Malvina Krutz was found. Detective Sergeant Stanley P. McDonald said officers now would begin a recheck of all other persons connected with the case. Hey, thanks, Michelle Nicholas. Others, he indicated, may be asked to take lie tests. Krutz was questioned about his wife's background, whether she was ever threatened, and whether the family had ever been bothered with prowlers. The 48-year-old shipping executive apparently was able to give police no new leads. Right. Oh, there's Blue. Oh, yeah. Ah, shoot. Hold on a second. Yeah. See, that was a mailman. If you want a good alarm, go ahead and get a Chihuahua. Chloe, not so much. She'll only bark when Blue barks when people are leaving. She doesn't even know why she's barking. It's funny. She's a little bit like this. Okay. So let's this is kind of interesting. This is new information here. Mysterious nighttime telephone calls made to Charles E. Krutz since his wife was slain in her bathtub have focused new suspicion on workmen formerly employed at the Krutz home, police said last night. The phone calls were disclosed by homicide detectives shortly after lie detector tests indicated that Krutz and Charles Fleck know nothing about the slang. I don't know. We'll have to keep that in mind. Yeah, man, I had this huge drop in channel membership. I'm not sure what's going on. This went like 340 to 322. I don't know if it's like your counts have to automatically be upgraded. I don't know how that works. But anyways, we're going to be getting rid of the lower tier anyways soon. So thank you, Michelle Nicholas. Yeah, I was wondering if you guys were thinking it was the pizza person. All right. Officers said they may soon request lie tests of other persons involved in the investigation, but did not name them. Fleck, 28, 28 years old, of 2714 East Michigan Street, was visited by Krutz for an hour that afternoon. So he got there at 1:55. Oh, and then he... Oh, okay. See, that was one of the things I was wondering, too, was... See, it was 1:55, and then he leaves at 2:45. And here's another little weird part right there. See, there was a 2:45. He leaves Fleck's house, and then he's seen at 3:20 right here, but that's 35 minutes to drive a tiny little distance. So what was he doing during that time? There's these little gaps out there. Hey, all right.
Keeping it real as always. Already upgraded.
Well, thank you. On the trail, Kim. You guys are awesome. All right. Ah, man. This is one of those little mind scratcher kind of deals. Mindbender. Fleck, 28 years old, of 2714 East Michigan Street, was visited by Krutz for an hour the afternoon of January 29th, the day of Miss Malvina Krutz's death. The tests were run to check statements given to police by the pair early in the investigation. You got sunshine? I know the song, Billy Boy Blue.
Sunshine on a cloudy day.
I've got sunshine. Now let's see how it reads it. Hey, thanks, Cindy Lynn.
Sorry to pop in this late, but I've got sunshine. On a cloudy day. When it's cold outside. I've got the month of May. End transmission. P.S. Kubi is a cutie.
Ah, look at that. Ah. Oh, so you only have the flu, Billy Boy Blue, not the corona? I should change my channel to call it the Gray Hughes Love Connection and put out these little freak hearts and, you know. Right, exactly. You know, basically put this one out all the time whenever there's those the love connections made. All right, Fleck, 28 years old. Oh, we already got to that part. The tests were run to check statements given to police. Homicide Detective Stanley P. McDonald said Krutz has received 3 of the anonymous calls since his wife's death. So he's gotten 3 calls. Each was made at about 9 p.m. Each time the caller, a woman, asks, "Is this Mr. Krutz?" And then they just hang up the phone. How weird. Is this Mr. Krutz? And so why do you think that's one of the... It's almost like the person wanted to say something or something. Because that's not going to be one of the workers, right? I mean, I guess it could have been a woman, but back then, let's just, I'm being honest here. There weren't a lot of women that did the painting in homes and drywall. They're a lot more now, but back then, I would almost say zero. Back in 22. Okay, McDonald said the caller breaks the connection when Krutz answers yes. So he goes, the caller, a female caller, calls at 9 p.m. around that time and says, is this Mr. Krutz? Yes. Click. The mysterious woman caller has a slight drawl and southern accent, Krutz said. I wonder if there's any evidence these are happening, though. But again, why would he say it was a female? See, it's weird. Like, if he was going to make up a story that wasn't true, he'd say it was a guy. It's a guy. And then that would lead it to be more related to the workers, right? But, so it makes it sound more authentic, this story, because it's a woman calling. The mysterious woman caller has a slight drawl and southern accent. So did an unidentified man known to have been in the Krutz home shortly before it says, so did an unidentified man known to have been in the Krutz home shortly before Miss Krutz was slain. See, it makes you wonder if the man had it was one of the workers that had an accent, and maybe his wife, because they came from an area. And then this lady was just trying to build up nerve to say something, but never could or something. I don't know. All right. We're almost engaged. Thanks, Cindy. I think it's less likely that he invented that a woman called. That's just kind of wouldn't make any sense. So did an unidentified man known to have been in the Krutz home shortly before Miss Krutz was slain? And so did. In an answer, he answered a telephone call made by her friend. Let me try this again. So did an unidentified... Oh, yeah, that's right. So he answered the phone by Mildred Warning within 55 minutes of the murder. Hey, so we nailed it. They're saying the murder was 12:45, and then they're saying 55 minutes. Yeah, to 1:40. Right, there you go.
6 months with you beautifuls.
That's right.
Think it's
See,
getting
that's why
serious.
I have that gap right
Kiss
there.
mark.
See, they know that the murder happened between 12:45 and 1:40, which is only 55 minutes. Or actually, 55 minutes. Yep. I'll just type it in. Murder between 12:45 and 1:40. And so, wow. I wonder if there's any proof those calls came in. That's so interesting that he... I'm trying to think of a scenario where, he was faking that accent, and then he pretends that he got a call, but what he really did was, I don't know how, is it proved that the calls were made? I mean, if this was today, there would have been an arrest made in this case if this case was today. There's no doubt about it. I mean, for a case with this much information. The similarities in accents may be more than coincidence, detectives said, indicating the anonymous woman caller might know something about a man still being sought by police. The man is believed to be the same one seen driving Mrs. Krutz's car out of the driveway at 1:40 p.m. the day she was killed. Detective Sergeant Earl C. Booth. Moving on to the next one. B. Pointed out that several workmen had been employed to repair the Krutz's home, which was damaged in a fire on December 13th. Oh, I thought you guys said the 16th before. Might have to do another search then on that. Let me try one more. Do that again. Hold on. So that would be the 14th. It would make the paper. 19. Let's see. December 14th, 1957. Indiana. I'm going to do Indianapolis. Let's see. Indiana. Let's see. Fire. And then Krutz. See if that works. And what's the address again? 5268. 5268 Guilford Avenue. Yeah, no. Let me try. I'll just one more. Nope, not there. All right. Okay, so McDonald said the investigation also will be concentrated on Mrs. Krutz's background, on the theory that she might have had an acquaintances unknown to her husband. Detectives pointed out that Mrs. Krutz, 41, had filed for divorce on January 13th. Wow. I mean, just... And just 2 weeks before. We already knew that, though. January 13th. Let me make sure I have that in my notes here. Let's see. 1958 01 13. Mrs. or Malvina filed for divorce. Actually, I'll just do it the other way because I've already started. Both she and her husband were to be in court on January 17th, but failed to show up. So they didn't show up. So and then a court order was issued directing an appearance January 30th. So they didn't show up, and I wonder what kept her from showing up on the 17th. I think that's interesting. But then they were mandated to appear on the 30th, which is a day. Oh, Jesus. Man, this is so similar to like 1,000 cases at this point. Here we go. And then right here, January 30th, 1958, court mandated appearance for divorce. So it was the day after she was killed they were supposed to be in court. Man, Jesus. How, this is just Cheryl Coker and a whole bunch of other ones. That's what it sounds like. But man, they cleared him, you know. And then there's going to be other information coming up because I glanced through some of this that you sort of go, well, maybe, it's a mind bender. It's crazy. was failed to show up. A court order was issued directing an appearance January 30th, with Fleck and Krutz cleared by the lie detector, McDonald said, but failed to show up at court. A court order was issued directing an appearance January 30th. Mrs. Krutz was killed the day before. Jeez. With Fleck, and that's just a total huge, massive red flag, and he was going to lose the house. And he lived in that house for years after that. With Fleck and Krutz cleared by the lie detector. Hey, great minds, Jamie, great minds. Cleared by the lie detector, McDonald said, we are now at the point where we were 24 hours after. The murder was committed, he said. Other persons may be asked to take a lie detector test. 24 hours after the murder was committed. He said other persons may be asked to take lie detector tests in an effort to develop new leads, but declined to say whom he had in mind. Krutz took the polygraph test in an hour-and-a-half session at police headquarters yesterday. Fleck was tested for 45 minutes. Question involved, blah, blah, blah. We already went through that. Booth said detectives are now positively interested in two persons who have not yet been brought in for... See, those are the other two. There were 7 people at that house, the 3 family members, the 2 friends, and now they just mentioned there was 2 other people. He declined to identify them. Krutz, a trucking company executive, found his wife's body in the water-filled bathtub of their home at 5268 Guilford Avenue when he returned from work at about 5 p.m. January 29th, the day before their court appearance. It doesn't say that, but for a divorce. The body was partly disrobed. So I'd like to know what she was wearing. Obviously, she didn't have her pants on. So she might have... They've never described what she was wearing. Neither did the autopsy. You know what's interesting, I was just noticing, is that picture of the house, especially the one back then. I mean, you could see what's going on in this house. And this would have been during the winter when there's no branches on the trees. You remember Indiana? It's just like Delphi, right? Where absolutely lush, you can't see a damn thing, and then in January and February, all the leaves fall off the trees, and you would be able to look there and see what's going on, especially if it was at night. But this wasn't. And I don't know, you could see through the window unless you had all the blinds shut, I guess. Well, the son's 9 years old, Michelle. I don't think a 9-year-old could even come close to dragging a fully grown adult body. But, yeah, you never know. He has popped into my head a couple times. And then I go, well, he's 9. I mean... And then some articles say he's 10. No, well, the light jacket... Did it say that? That it was a light jacket in the first article? I thought the jacket was left on a chair by the 2 friends. Oh, maybe it did say that. Let me see. Let me go back up there. This is the very first one that we read. She had abrasions on her lips, small cuts. A suspect was questioned. Other circumstances. A pillow with blood. There were indications that the woman's body had been moved or been on the pillows. A pair of soggy, wet women's pants were found in the bedroom of the son. They were torn, as was a light jacket. Oh, there you go. Hey, there you go. Hey, cool. Thank you. Let me put that in there then. Wet found, and then also they were torn, as was a light jacket still on the body. So it sounds like the light jacket was torn too then. They were torn, as was a light. So they were ripped off, like trying to be ripped off of her. Found in the son's bedroom. And they weren't just wet, so they were wet, torn pants. And then, let's see, wet, light jacket. Wet, so it will obviously be wet because it was on her, but wet, torn jacket was still on. Okay, cool. Thank you. I kept wondering about that. Like, what, you know, because they, I mean, we were talking about that last night. It was crazy. It was just in that little small section. But hey, thank you for pointing that out. Good to have that. Cleared. Alright, we're over here. Nothing indicates they have any knowledge. Krutz, a trucking. Okay, I think we were just finished with that. This is February 8th. We just read those two. Now we're going to February 10th. Police check telephone tips. Police last night were checking out a flurry of telephone tips received in response to their public appeal for information to help solve the bathtub murder case. Many of the calls turned out to be advice from amateur sleuths. Man, they actually have people called that back then? I didn't even know that. Wow. I thought that was sort of like, you know, that's incredible. I think that's weird. I mean, I do. I don't know why I think that's weird, but that's insane. They had freaking amateur sleuths back in 1958? Are you kidding me? They're probably following it just like we are, going, hey, man, have you, you know. That's insane. Wow. But a few may turn up new evidence in the mysterious slaying of attractive 41-year-old Miss Malvina Krutz. The homicide office talked with 4 persons, including 2 paper hangers, so wallpaper hangers, who came to headquarters without being asked, but Booth reported no new breaks. Others who talked with detectives were an unidentified man who confirmed information that Booth said may be valuable, and a 62-year-old junk collector who was a suspect. The paper hanger were in the Krutz home, 5268 Guilford Avenue, a few days before the 41-year-old housewife bruised and drowned body was discovered in the bathtub January 29. Their fingerprints and those of the junk collector were compared with one found on a bedroom door in the Krutz home. They did not match. Detective Sergeant Robert T. Morrison and John E. Rudd were assigned to the case yesterday to check out some of the telephone tips. Booth and his partner, Stanley T. McDonald, remain in charge of the 11-day-old investigation. You'd almost think this is like 4 months long, how much information. And that was it for that one. All right, now we're moving on to the 11. But look how much more is left. Watch this. See where I'm highlighted? I mean, we haven't. It's like a third here, and we haven't even done the one that I highlighted. Not that long though. Mystery woman sought. Indianapolis police today warned that the mystery woman who's been calling the Charles Krutz residence may be in danger of her life. Now they're just trying to get her to call in. 3 times since the discovery of Mrs. Malvina Krutz's partially clad body in the bathtub of her home, a woman with a southern drawl has called the Krutz residence. Each time the woman has hung up after Krutz answered and said yes to the question, Is this the Charles Krutz residence? So she would just hang up. Who's Nefarious Rodeo Clown? Let's see. I wonder if that's Cairo, just changing a name up. Great, keep taking names and kicking ass. Seems like too much house traffic in this case. So many variables. Hey, someday do a catch up on the Missy Beavers case. 2 open records came out a couple months ago. Well, send me an email of those. He opens records so I can check them out. I'll tell you what, though, that one security guard that worked there walking around, whew, man, looked just like, I mean, like literally identical to the way that person was walking. Pretty weird. I did see that. Now, the dad did too, but not this other guy, way more than the dad. The dad had the outward toes, kind of walked similarly, but there's a security guard that was filmed and just unbelievable. I mean, it was like, I literally, like, absolutely identical. All right, let me get through this one now. 3 times since the discovery of Miss Malvina Krutz's partially clad body in the bathtub of her home, a woman with a southern drawl has called the Krutz residence. She'll say, "Hey, is this Mr. Krutz?" And then he says yes, and then she hangs up. On the afternoon of the murder, January 29th, a man with a southern drawl answered the Krutz telephone and relayed a message from Mrs. Krutz to friends of hers. And hours later, she was dead. See, the affair thing makes more sense to me, given the fact that guy answered that call, unless he was intentionally trying to make it sound like he had a southern drawl. And I don't know if there was a way back then to call yourself. You know, you sort of wonder, I mean, who has proof? I'm sure the police checked his phone records and saw these calls come in. So where did they come from? Was the phone answered? I think you only get the record if it's answered. I don't think back then it would say missed call or something. Usually the phone records would say what number it was and how long you talked. Which part, Jamie? No, I think back in the 50s, it was just if a call came in, it recorded that and how long you were on. I don't think they had. Yeah, well, the thing is, when Mrs. Warning called at 12:45, called Malvina to say, "Hey, we want to come over and check out the house," the guy answered the phone, and he had a southern drawl. And he said, oh, I got it right here. Hold on a second. Got it in the notes now. 12:45, right here. Mrs. Warning called Malvina to confirm a visit, and a man answers and hears Malvina say, see, this is different than that longer article. She spoke to the man, and he said, so, "Hey, can I speak with Malvina?" And he says, "Well," and then Mrs. Warning said to give Malvina a message, "Tell her that Mrs. Colbert and I are heading over to see the work on the house." Malvina then replies in the background. So the man has the phone in his hand in the background and says, "Tell Miss Warning that I have to take Buddy to school," her son, "and we'll pick her up at 1:30. And which is, I think, is really odd, is at 1:40, these 2 women drove over. "Hey, where are you?" You know, it's like, God, give her a minute, you know? Can you give her a minute? I mean, if you'd showed up there at 2, I might have thought that was normal, but you got there at 1:40. Okay. On the afternoon of the murder, January 29th, a man with a southern drawl answered the Krutz telephone and relayed a message from Miss Krutz to friends of hers. An hour later, she was dead. The theory being developed is that the woman caller knows the identity, right, of the man who answered the telephone, at 12:45, the day she was murdered. And if he is also the murderer, he may take steps to keep her from revealing, he may take steps to keep her from revealing his identity to police. Yeah, I don't know. I think they're just trying to get her to come out. Yeah, it just seems like maybe it was an affair. It's starting to lean a little bit like there was an affair going on at the home. And I'd like to know where he was right during that time frame. See, we know the murder happened between 12:45 and 1:40, which is 55 minutes. A 55-minute period. And we know that he was at a bar at noon, but then shows up to his friend's house. See, there he is right there. 12 o'clock. Husband is at Charles. Or the husband, Charles, is at Mike's bar at 802 Southwest Street. But doesn't that give him time to, leave the bar, do something? He's seen leaving the house at 1:40, 15-minute drive. He's over at his friend's house on Charles Fleck, 28, his house at 27140 East Michigan. That makes sense to me. But it's like, did he go home during that time, had a couple drinks, he goes home, and then he catches his wife with that person who's on the phone. Hey, thanks, Marine Co. But then where is that person? I mean, did that person just not want to ruin their marriage so it never came forward? I mean, that would be a decent excuse why he didn't say anything. But he left and had nothing to do with the murder also, so doesn't want to be implicated in it. He got a shoe shine somewhere he didn't know? I don't know what that means. What does that mean? He got a shoe shine somewhere he didn't know. Is that some kind of lingo from somewhere? Oh, when did he say that? Did I just read that? Because sometimes I'm like kind of reading and then looking at the chat. When did he say that about the shoe shine? Just now? I don't have it in the timeline. I don't have it in the timeline. Yeah, it's hard to do a show and be typing at the same time. We don't know, Zozo. We don't know, Zozo. You haven't been here today listening to the things that make it seem like he might not have been, he could have done it. We don't know. Okay? There's other factors out there. Like you just said a minute ago, you haven't been watching or listening, so, go back and listen and then go type it in. I'm sure you will. Right, I know that, Dana. Thanks. So after leaving Mike's bar, he said he got a shoe shine. Was that in the actual timeline? There was a timeline up here, let's see. From the second. Turns home. Man, I wish I could find... Now I have to go check this out. Hold on. I have to find it. Well, well, I'm just going to do it a different way. Alright, let me see if I even have this one. Yeah, I didn't have that article. 1 hour in activities of Krutz on wife's death day still studied. Yeah, see, that's what I was thinking. There's this little time. Police yesterday were scrutinizing. Let me grab this. I gotta have this in my records over here. And there's a second page of it. So this is a different article. I never typed it in. I save all the time. I never typed it in though. None of those two things I typed in on the timeline. The jacket or the... I remembered in my head. There was a lot of stuff that I was reading that I just, after a while, I go, I don't have time to type it all in. Because people get bored when you're just typing for 25 minutes. Alright, and then I'm going to go to page 11, column 3. Yeah, I'm going to have to go read this one now. A shoe shine. That's hilarious. That sounds like something you would just kind of make up to say, you know, a lot of people did shine their shoes, but that just sounds really... Well, I don't know who it was. It was, you know, a kid on the... He's not there all the time. I don't remember. Okay, I'm going back now to this article. This isn't the one that I read, but it mentions shoe shining. So, police yesterday were scrutinizing 1 hour in the activities of 48-year-old Charles E. Krutz on the day his wife drowned in the bathtub of the couple's home. Investigators still were considering the possibility that the death of Miss Malvina Krutz, 41, was accidental. Detective Sergeant Earl E. Booth and Detective Stanley P. McDonald said they were not wholly satisfied with their husband's story. Krutz was questioned more than 3 hours Saturday in the attempt to account for his movements on Wednesday before the mysterious death was discovered. It was more than an hour between the time Krutz left his office until he arrived. Yeah, see, that's I've already identified that exact spot right there. Before he went to his friend's place. A check was being made at a shoe shine parlor. Because remember, he was at the bar at noon, and then 1:55 at his friend's place. So that's the time frame that seems like it gives him a lot of time. And apparently he must have gone back to work after eating lunch at that bar, because they said he had left work again. A check was being made at a shoe shine parlor and a filling station where Krutz said he stopped. Early yesterday, the friend Krutz visited substantiated the story of the landlady. Oh, so it was the landlady. So his buddy was taken out of being able to have an alibi because the landlady had already given the time, who said Krutz arrived at 1:55 p.m. and left at 2:45. Okay, so let me... Okay, so then he says in this time frame, so 12:45. See, but that's what's crazy. So if he was back at work and they know that he checked out of work, this guy right here, he might have still been there at 12:50 or 1 o'clock when the husband might have been pulling up, saw the guy leave, then he goes into the house. But he left a different way than the car. Yeah, see? Man, it's crazy. Jeez. So it's kind of making my brain hurt, actually. But it kind of makes sense. It's hard to actually keep it all together every single time. Let's see. So he's saying probably between noon and 1:55. Not noon. 1 and 1:55. All right. Yeah. Control C and Control V are the best things out there, everybody. And Control X. Don't forget that one. I know. It's weird that he can go to work and then just kind of be like, yeah, I'm taking off again. And why did he go? What was the reason he went to that friend's house? Right? All right. A check was being made at a shoe shine parlor and a filling station. So he did mention the places. Early yesterday, the friend Krutz visited, substantiated the story. Yep. Police said the friend was cleared of any implication in Mrs. Krutz's death. I can believe that. I think he might have been an alibi. You know, he wanted to make sure he was seen there. A friend verified that Mrs. Krutz suffered a dislocated disc in her back, which at times rendered her helpless. The woman's friend said she once had an attack in the living room and just fell right back flat. Pathologists have stated that the bruises on her body could have been caused in a fall or a struggle. Still, a mystery is a yellow pencil with strands of human female hair embedded in it, which was found in a bedroom of the Krutz home. Detectives say it could have caused scalp wounds found on Miss Krutz's body. Hey, just for Gene Fish's sake, I wonder if they tested the hair against any of her two friends that came and visited. Although the two friends, well, they're not clear at all. Yeah, the two friends. The thing is, the two friends were there during a crucial time frame. Well, no, they left. They were there right after that. If you believe them, right? That's the thing. Let's just say, hypothetically, if the two women had something to do with killing her, then you have to extend it to 2 o'clock. Okay? Because they had 20 minutes where we're just relying on their word. That's it. A friend verified that Mrs. Krutz suffered a dislocated disc in her back, which at times rendered her helpless. The woman's friend said she once had an attack in the living room, and just fell right back flat. Well, what about this? What if the person in the home was actually related to, was the husband of one of these two women? There we go. Now we can really make this a crazy story, huh? It was Mrs. Warning's husband. And that's who was driving. That's why they went there. Because she knew, because it's a little weird that they drove to the house, right? That part's always a little bit weird in the story, right? No, just think about it for a second. This is what Gene Fish brought up yesterday. But think about that for a minute. How weird is it that the two women got in their car and drove over to the house, right? So that you got to keep that in your mind. Yeah, I'm gonna look at it. I'm gonna call over there and see if they have the right information to get a hold of Colleen about. But the two women drove over there really fast for some unknown reason. And maybe the person on the phone didn't have an accent. That was just told that the only reason we know that the person on the phone had an accent was by the Mrs. Warning, right? So she might have recognized the voice completely, but just claimed it was a different sounding voice. Because had she said it was my, you can go down this whole road here. You could make this case. I could easily do this. Okay? And it's not even that outlandish at that point. Yep. Oh, well. We'll just kind of keep that one, because you got to admit, it is weird that the two women drove over to the house after Malvina said, I'll pick you up at 1:30, and they're already at her house at 1:40. They couldn't wait 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. That means they left their house at like 1:35, right? I mean, how impatient do you have to be? And why were you impatient? Oh, yeah, you can definitely do it. Right, yeah, something like that. So, just kind of keep that in your minds. It's not really... It's too bad Gene Fish isn't here right now. She'd be like, yeah, I told you, But maybe, right? I'm just saying, it definitely opens the door because the only reason that the window is 12:45 to 1:40 is because they say they saw a guy leave the house and drive away. Okay? If they did it, then you extend it to 2 o'clock when they leave, if that is in fact actually when they left. I don't know if there's any proof that they left at that time. Pathologists have stated that, but you got to admit, like, overall, the husband, they were supposed to have a hearing on the divorce the next day, and it sounds like she was winning and going to get the house. So that's a huge motive as to the why question that Jen H just asked up above. I know it makes it more complicated, but it makes it more interesting, right? You got to figure out the one that seems the most obvious. Or the most likely, not obvious. Friend verified that Miss Krutz suffered a dislocate. Pathologists have stated that the bruises on her body could have been caused. Detectives say it could have caused scalp wounds found on... They're talking about the pencil. Alright, and then this is the last part of that. Police were still trying to unsuccessfully to determine who drove. Hey, you know what? I'm glad a couple of you were listening so well to give me those two other CR and Dana Dane. For giving me that other information. Those two, that she was wearing the light jacket, and he claimed that he went and saw a shoe shine person, and there was also a gas station. Yeah, I don't know why they say that. It's stupid. The circumstantial evidence immediately makes it not an accident. A third witness, a youth who lives in the neighborhood, verified the story of Mrs. Mildred Warning and Mrs. Oh, see, look at, they were kind of wondering too. look at this. Here we go, look at. Police were still trying to unsuccessfully determine who drove Mrs. Krutz's car away from the home about 1:40. A third witness, a youth who lives in the neighborhood, verified the story of Mrs. Mildred Warning and Miss Florence Kubert, who said they saw the car leave. The boy told police he saw the car pull from the Krutz driveway and go north on Guilford Avenue, and said he saw Mrs. Warning and Miss Kubert arriving at... Oh, that they're cleared. See, right there, and that clears the women. It's amazing that right after we talked about that, in the same article, you've got the answer. Because now there's another guy that saw the car leave just before them. You guys agree with that now? That they're cleared? Because at this point, you'd have to come up with a crazy conspiracy to try to make that work. Yeah, the why they went there, I don't know. They might be those really, like, you know, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, people that just want, if you're not there right away, they get really antsy and nosy and just, they feel like they were dissed. I don't know. But that is crazy that this boy said that. Now, here's the conspiracy. The two women paid the boy to keep... Oh, jeez. Years later, boy confesses he was paid to say that... I do too, Cindy. Damn it, we're going to make it work. See, that's what happens on other channels, right? I as soon as I get something like that, I move on now. I'm not going to make it work because it seemed interesting. You know, the women were interesting, and there was reasons that they could have been interesting. They hustled over there for some unknown reason. Yeah. Yep, can't do that. Well, that was awesome. So anyways, everybody, I'm going to be back on later this evening. Where are we? Let's make sure we're at the... I think we read this one. Indian Mysterious Woman. Yeah, we got that. So I think we're right here on the 12th. Okay. I'll put start here. Okay, I'm going to be back on at like 9:30. All right? Everyone can go get some drinks and... Yeah. So thank you guys very much. Thank you too. I'm going to come back on later. You guys interested? Like at 9:30? Maybe do like another hour and a half or so. Hells to the yeah.
Thank you. Barbara Smith, Brian Joe, Jessica Schubach, LM, Lori Staggs, Billy Boy Blue, he needed the money, Rita Maloney, Gwen Jackson, Miscus, Kit Kat, Selfie, Lee D, Jessica Schubach, Michelle Niklas. Michelle Niklas again became a member. On the Trail Kim upgraded her membership. Well,
let me say it again. Michelle Niklas upgraded her membership. On the Trail Kim did a super chat.
Billy Boy Blue. Cindy Lynn upgraded her membership. Cindy Lynn. Nefarious Rodeo Clown. Maureen Co.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much, and we will see you guys in a few hours. All right? Interesting story so far, don't you think? Put a 1 if this is interesting, 'cause I think it is. You don't have to, though. Make sure to put a comment after this video, alright? So right after the show, go comment in there. I think that'd be cool. Thank you very much. And until next time, be safe out there. Yeah, I've been doing this true crime thing for quite a while now.
Hey!
And during
Oh yeah, and wear your mask, maintain your social distancing, and wash your hands.
Gee, Gray, you forgot.
Dissector.
Yep, I forgot. Sorry.
I'm a certified human lie detector.
Gonna get you on a stretcher. You be trying to me like a little projector. Crime sector is my nectar. The Patrick is gonna give another lecture.
Crime collector, freak connector.
And I'm always
Gonna be a pup protector.
Wow, that's such high pitch.
Interceptor.
I don't mean a little spectre with a vector.
On his specter, with all respect, ya. Just remember I've a temper fucking check ya. I have no agenda, I'm no pretender. And I'll serve it to you straight without the blender. And in the end, I'm gonna send ya
Hey, Emily,
on a
Emily
mission to
Flotilla,
resolve the
yeah.
Yeah, so I'll just get right back to work. Alright?
Hey, Emily Flotilla likes me.
Well, there are a couple people that like you.
You mean only a couple? Gee, John Boy, you're so mean.
Wow, that sounded pretty legit that time.
Because I'm really sad. You said only a couple people like me.
Oh, wow. I was just being facetious.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, see you guys later.
You know, I think Mary Lou was full of crap right there. I'm just being, you know. How did she change her tone so quick like that? Let's all think about that for a minute. All right, everybody. Be safe out there.